Everyone, Dr. Adam Graves here. We're talking about um, what five questions people have asked me that they always preempted with. I'm so embarrassed. This is hard to talk about. So, oh, sorry, my phone's ringing. Um, this is Christy, my blog writer and newsletter writer. So go ahead, let's start.
Sure. First of all, I think a lot of people were all self quarantining and is stressful, and we
Mhm.
don't know. Some of us have great coping skills that we've learned along the way, and
Yeah.
some of us don't have great coping skills. And I think times like this can bring out those not great coping skills.
Yeah.
But can you talk first about, let's just take drinking, for example. How much or when do you know when you are drinking too much, especially during this time?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think it's very individual. We can start with the research. So the current research is that kind of there is no quote unquote healthy amount of alcohol. So any drinks will start to increase your risk for breast cancer, colon cancer, things like that. So unfortunately, as far as the research goes, no alcohol is the best. Now,
What
during this
about white
time,
wine, though?
well, the alcohol was, um, or the research was kind of that benefit versus risk. So I think where alcohol comes into play is that fine line. If you're using a little bit of alcohol, I think women, it's about one drink a day. Men, it's about one and a half drinks a day. So that's over a week. So if you're drinking 3, 4 drinks on the weekend, it's not plus one drink a day. So, but if you're using that to help lower stress and cortisol, a small amount is okay. Once you get to a certain amount of alcohol, basically over 1 to 2 glasses, you're gonna start messing up your blood sugar, your cortisol, your sleep. Um, which, in my opinion, right now, that's the opposite of what we want to do for our immune system. We want to help our sleep, help our cortisol, and help our immune system. So it's if you're noticing you need alcohol to sleep, but you're not sleeping as good, or you feel like, hey, I used to only need 1 or 2 drinks on the weekend, now I'm drinking 1 or 2 drinks every day, then it's probably time to start looking at other options to help with some of those stress coping skills.
Well, let's talk about that because this can be, especially here in Colorado, a time where, okay, maybe somebody wants to stop drinking as much and they might be considering the use of cannabis.
Mhm.
And this could be used for stress, anxiety,
Yeah,
inflammation, for better sleep.
yeah.
But what about people who have never tried this before, who have no idea what to get, who are nervous about doing this?
Yeah.
Tell us what to do.
Where to start?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm not pro or anti-cannabis. I'm kind of pro reducing harm and helping health, and I get a lot of people, especially in Douglas County, that um, I'm pretty easy to talk to. So people ask me, what about weed for this, or cannabis, or CBD? So we all have our vices, right? Alcohol, food, weed, work. We all have our are not the healthiest coping skills. So, in my opinion, if your alcohol's, I if it's like a four-legged chair and alcohol and food are two of those legs, well, those probably aren't the best right now. Where you may be able to add in cannabis um, to ease that off. The nice thing about cannabis is it does have some health benefits, especially combined with CBD. It's anti-inflammatory, it's anti-anxiolytic, which is anti-anxiety. It helps with sleep. It calms that nervous system and pain. So when it comes to cannabis, you have CBD. There's a lots of things, but let's talk about CBD and THC. You can start here with CBD if you're having anxiety. Um,
And CBD is non psychoactive.
Yep, CBD is
THC
no,
is.
exactly, will not affect, you won't feel high, you may feel calm, you may feel tired. CBD is more anti-inflammatory. Um, and you can start high CBD, no THC, and herbs are kind of like aren't like medication, so you can't just take a dose once and then you're good all day. It's kind of like a beer or a glass of wine. You drink it, you feel the effects for 1 to 2 hours, and then they're out of your body. So it's the same with CBD and cannabis. So some people with severe anxiety need to take a dose of CBD 4 times a day. You know, then if that's not working, then you can start to add in THC. Now you can go all the way from CBD and no THC to the opposite, high THC and no CBD. Obviously, high THC and no CBD, you're gonna go the opposite. You're gonna get high. Your anxiety may get worse. You may feel awful. So most of the time, I'm telling people if they've never done any THC, start here with CBD and start with what we call a 2 to 1. 2 times CBD, 1 time THC, or 1 to 1 equal. And then you're getting both benefits. Now, obviously, be safe, don't drive, any of that. But it's real individual. But most of the time, I tell people start with the CBD THC, a low THC product, and just dose it a little bit at a time. Start with a quarter, half a recommended the dose, and see how you feel. And it's like a glass of wine. If you have a
Talk
glass
about
of wine,
dose though. Is this something you're smoking? Is a dose an edible?
well,
What does that mean?
yeah, I mean it's a lot, right? So you can smoke it, you can eat it, you can vape it. I For most health benefits, either edibles are going to be the best because you're not inhaling them for your lungs. They're going to release a little bit slower, so you're not going to get the big high and the big low. You're going to get a slower kind of transition, and it's going to last over longer, 1 to 2 hours. So you don't want to do like we all did in high school. You drink a shot, you don't feel anything, so you take 5 shots. That's that's the problem. It's exactly the opposite of what you want to do with edibles or vaping or smoking, anything, whatever you prefer to do is start low, wait a half hour, an hour, or another day, and then you can always increase the dose. But edibles or vaping are going to be your best to get that CBD THC. There's not a lot of flower or weed that you can smoke that really has that CBD THC ratio, nor do I really endorse it because in the COVID, we're trying to obviously protect the lungs, so we don't want people to start smoking. But
So when you say start with a quarter,
yeah,
you might mean take a quarter of a piece of
yeah,
edible.
a quarter of a gummy. Usually, the brand I like is called Wana. It's WANA, and they make 5 to 1. So you're up here 5 times CBD, 1 time THC. They make 2 to 1s. So you're 2 times CBD, and they make 1 to 1s. And then they also make, the medical industry, marijuana is still, most people are getting high, but we're starting to get good medicinal products, CBD, THC, that helps people with anxiety, insomnia, pain, things like that. So you want to start in here and see how you individually react. But usually the Wanas, I think they sell 10-pack of gummies, 2 to 1s. They're little squares. I usually tell people cut them in half or quarters, and just pop a quarter or a half and see how you feel in an hour. And ideally, our goal is to reduce that harm. So if we can reduce the um, alcohol use, but also calm your anxiety and sleep better, then we're reducing that harm and overall improving your health.
Right. Okay, I have another one.
Okay, go ahead.
I may or may not have instances where I do this myself. What about during this time, stress can make us so crave sugar and carbs so much. So what about people who have a secret stash of chocolate or not very healthy foods, and you can't stop dipping into them every day?
Well, I think it's okay. So, kind of a Chinese philosophy or something I heard in school is, everything in moderation, even moderation itself. So, at my point, it's a harm reduction. If a little bit of sweets is okay, but if you're feeling out of control or you're gaining a bunch of weight or you feel like you're eating emotionally and overwhelmed, then ideally it's like, okay, the food is kind of, it's a short-term fix for the stress and anxiety, but it's not really a long-term fix. So what things, the food is just, I see alcohol, weed, food as self-medicating, right? We're using these
Hmm.
medications to feel better. Okay, some of them are better short-term, some are better long-term. So if I'm feeling anxious, what things can I start to do that are better long-term fixes? What tools can I start to develop? And so I don't want to say, oh, just stop eating sweets, because then people, you're taking away these tools that they have and they haven't developed these other tools. So whether that's when you're anxious, you know, before you go eat candy, try to write in a journal for 2 minutes or text a friend or draw a picture or just go on a walk by yourself. Try to add in, develop more stress coping skills that are better long term, ideally, then these ones slowly go down. But it takes time. That's why I'm always trying to help people transition from, kind of good and bad vices to overall better, short-term fixes versus long-term lifestyle fixes. So I think you gotta give yourself grace. We're all having meltdowns. We're all struggling. We're all like, it's okay, man. If you have a sugar craving or you're gaining 1 to 2 pounds or 5 pounds, as long as that's not your lifestyle, and it's like, okay, this is just for the next month or so. I'm going to get walking more. I'm going to start adding in, I'm going to start journaling or counseling or talking to friends. As long as you're developing these other stress management tools, then in my opinion, I'm not too worried about it. And I try to do people just create some self-love and some self-acceptance and grace versus this constant cycle of, I'm anxious, let me eat something, oh, now I'm a dipshit, now I'm bad, I shouldn't have ate that, and now I'm anxious because I ate that. Like, that's just a bad cycle.
Right.
Just like, hey, I'm just gonna eat some candy because I feel bad right now, but I can't do this forever. Let me figure out what other tools I can add in to help.
Thanks.
Is
I have
that
two more
helpful?
questions for you. Yeah. I don't have to throw my stash away.
That's right.
Um, what about for people who we're around our families 24/7, and even though we love them dearly, what if they're driving you nuts?
That's
I think
yeah.
that's probably happening for some
Yeah,
people.
for a lot of people.
What
Well,
do you do? You're
even,
losing your self-identity.
you're losing your self-identity. It goes back to introverts and extroverts. So even if you're around your family, some introverts even just feel drained, even though it's around people you love. Um, so ultimately, I think it's kind of figuring out, one, it's always about awareness. Like, okay, yeah, I'm on edge. This is being around these kids all the time. Um, Losing my kind of self identity, we've all kind of lost some independence. How can I start to add that in? Whether that's, like, hey, I'm gonna go pick out takeout, but I'm gonna get takeout. I'm gonna sit in my car and eat my takeout alone, and then I'm gonna bring the takeout to the family.
Fair
Or
enough. Fair enough.
so maybe your alone time is just sitting in your car listening to the radio, talking to one of your friends, going to get takeout. Or maybe once it gets weather, where people are gonna have to start camping out in their backyard and have their kids and your husband camp out in the backyard so you can have the house to yourself or something. So I think we're all gonna have to become, um, we're all gonna have to think outside of the box and do things and find that alone time, whether that's in your room or a bath or sitting in your car or going on a walk by yourself or getting outside. It's kind of changing and adapting because most of us had alone time built in our schedule. Now we don't have that built in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads to our last question of, how do you know if you're becoming depressed?
Yeah, um, I think that's hard. I mean, honestly, there is so much. No, even though I feel like I'm kind of ahead of the curve, there's still this big stigma. We all myself, including really have a hard time finally admitting like I'm anxious and I'm depressed. You know, for some people, they're scared it's going to be a weakness or they're going to have to go on medications or something. But I think first is, are you having feelings of anxiety and feelings of depression that are coming and going? Or are you depressed and you feel low all the time? So, or you're having panic attacks. So first is kind of checking in is like, okay, am I just anxious and stressed due to the situation? Or am I trouble getting out of bed? Am I crying all day long? Am I trouble taking care of myself? You know, those are kind of more major signs of depression that we're looking for. Or am I so anxious I can't even complete one task, or I'm yelling at my kids all the time? So we're looking for kind of those extremes. Obviously, the major one, if you're any thoughts of self-harm to you or self-harm to your family outside, you know, living with them, realistic self-harm or harm, that's where we're severe depression and, you know, we start looking at meds. But if you're depressed or anxious, it's hard to gauge, but you need to kind of check with your spouse, check with your ability to cope, check with friends and family. Are you isolating? Are you falling apart? Um, and kind of try to figure out, is this situational or is this a constant? And
Can
that's
someone call you about that?
what.
Can someone call you about that?
Oh yeah. So if you're wondering, yeah, we call, and it may be, I work with lots of patients that, you know, stress is here, then anxiety, mild, and then there's moderate anxiety, and then there's, you know, severe. So severe anxiety and depression, I'm more like, okay, meds are maybe an option when people can't function in the world. They can't get out of bed, they can't even hold a job or relationships. That's where meds. When we're looking at stress, anxiety, mild anxiety and moderate anxiety, depression, that's where herbs, eventually acupuncture, counseling, diet, developing how to relate to stress, all those can really help move us through and develop skills to move us through those things. Because ultimately, stress is always going to be out here, right? And as we age, we want to develop our stress skills in here so that we feel better about the stress out here. That's what no one, in my opinion, taught me, not to anybody's offense. None of us have learned. None of us have really, there wasn't a course in school. It's like, hey, how do you deal with stress on the inside? What do you do for yourself with stress? Stress is going to come and go, and we all try to manage it. Unfortunately, that is a losing battle because stress is always going to be here. What's not a losing battle is developing tools to help you, each individual, deal with stress, anxiety, and depression in their own life.
Well, thanks so much for answering these questions.
Yep.
I don't think they're that embarrassing, and I think they
I know.
happen to a lot of people.
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, I think we're all we're hopefully, you know, with this coronavirus, we're all shedding some of our inhibitions and we're all getting more authentic and real and just being honest with ourselves and with others that, hey, we're all in this together. We're all have struggles. We all have insecurities. All of us are messed up. Nobody's perfect. We're all figuring this out and we're just can be open and honest with each other so we can develop tools and skills and coping skills that are going to continue to add years and joy to our life versus keeping us stuck and robbing us of joy in life.
Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah, is that good? And then we'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye bye.